Katie can name that singer. All right, Democrats promising to pass gun control legislation after retaking the House. And California Congressman Eric Smalwell causing controversy a little bit for a response during a Twitter battle with a conservative pundit. The social media spat erupting after a Second Amendment supporter pointed out that Smalwell once called for gun owners to surrender their assault weapons. The congressman tweeting this response, quote, "And it would be a short war, my friend. The government has nukes, too many of them, but they're legit. I'm sure if we talked, we could find common ground to protect our families and communities." Swalwell later backtracked after getting slammed for his remark, claiming he was just being sarcastic. I think we give him a pass on being sarcastic, right?
Well, this is the issue. There is no sarcastic font on Twitter, and everybody gets burned on this. I know what he was saying. If you take it at the initial, it's like saying, yeah, your guns are no match for our nukes. But that wasn't really what he was saying. What he was saying is that it's pretty unlikely an armed population would be able, it's irrelevant in this day and age with nuclear power. In the 1800s, it would. But the thing is, I think that's flawed because no country like the United States would actually use nuclear weapons on a city. That they wouldn't do that. So
but wait. So let's take your argument seriously, because I hear this from gun owners who say, you know, if I keep my guns, then the government tyranny cannot occur in the USA because we can fight back. So forget the nuke stuff, which I think was sarcastic and over the top. But the reality is, what a bogus argument. Because it's not a matter of nukes. Gosh, the U.S. stockpile of weapons and the number of people in our military is so amazing that
making sense, Batman. Juan Williams can't be sensible.
What the hell?
But I think, okay, I disagree. Armed population, people that have a lawful abiding owners of guns, exist as a reminder of what right protects the other rights.
Right.
It's like this is the last stand, and you feel comfortable. Also, everybody remember back in the day, people lived in places where they had to protect themselves. Now we have more police officers. But the fact is, there is a feeling that this protects other rights. The problem with Stalwell is his buyback isn't really a buyback if it's tied to criminal prosecution, then that is a confiscation. And I think it's hard to trust people who play with the language. I mean, he said that a rifle's more powerful with a pistol grip. It's not more powerful. That makes no sense.
Ask Katie about that. She knows.
It's not. So anyway,
buybacks are never voluntary. In Australia, they did a buyback, and it was the government saying, "You're going to give us your guns, or we're going to come prosecute you." Juan, you think that the argument that having firearms as a deterrent against a tyrannical government is one that is maybe outdated or irrelevant now, but that the entire purpose of the Second Amendment was for that sake of protecting.
But that was a different time.
But the Second Amendment is a right. It is not something you just change based on the times. And the idea that an armed society is a polite society is still important. And although we have more police officers, we have more government, in the end, people still have to protect themselves inside their homes, in their cities, and when the government fails, like after Hurricane Katrina and other natural disasters. So this idea that just because the government has nukes and can now take on their own people if they feel like it because they're fighting back with their Second Amendment rights is a little bit hard to swallow when it comes to the original intention of people having firearms to prevent against
hard to swallow. Well, thank you.
No pun intended.
I call him General Swalwell.
So he might run for president, and it would be, that's a hard name.
Yes, it doesn't roll off the tongue. I think he just nuked his chances. Didn't pass the commander-in-chief test. Listen, you can't use a nuke in a civil war. Everybody dies, and everybody knows that. Democrats just have a hard time talking about guns. It's just like a different language.
May I interject, though?
Yes.
Michael Bloomberg put in a lot of money to candidates that are talking about what was it called? Every Town, I think it was called. They had an 83% win rate. They targeted 66 races with their endorsement and their money. They won 83% of those. And even candidates, Virginia, Texas, Georgia, Washington, and in Colorado suburbs in particular, they ran on sensible gun control. I'm not defining it, but that's what they would call it. And they won.
You know, I'm not so sure I can translate that money from Bloomberg into, yes, let's now claim we have a mandate to confiscate guns.
Right.
I think they probably ran to the center, to a moderate center on guns, but the Democrats did not put like a contract with America out there like Newt Gingrich did, and now say, you know, we were given the keys to the House, and now we're going to take away guns and we're going to impeach. That's not what the American people sent you guys there for. You guys won on running that Trump is mean to minorities and women and health care. That's why you won. So to misinterpret the mandate and go hard left on guns, they're going to really hurt them.
The great economy and more police, you have less violence. I don't think buybacks. I think buybacks are like are actually the worst kind of thing to do because it's symbolic and not practical.
You know, who's not doing gun buybacks? People who want to do mass harm.
Yeah, criminals don't
and criminals
turn them in.
doing that. Right, and each situation, the frustration for me all the time is that each situation is very different, whether you're in Chicago, California, Florida, each circumstance surrounding what has happened, especially in Parkland. We're not holding people accountable who missed all the warning signs. So you can implement all the gun control you want, but if you're not going to take care of things,
let me just say, we just had a terrible shooting in California. We know about the terrible shooting in Las Vegas.
Which has lots of gun control.
And here we have a situation where there's just too many guns.
So you want confrontation then? Is that what you want?
You have so many people who have multiple weapons, all kinds of semi-automatic weapons. Yeah. And this is not about defending your home. This is not about forming a militia going back to the 1700s.
Is that who you're speaking
for? This is about people who have a fetish about guns. And it seems to me, this is madness.
I am a person who...
And this is the reason why you see people like Bloomberg put money in and why it works, because most Americans, and I think most of the people at this table, if they told the truth,
get him, Kitty.
Excuse me, I never, okay. Saying too many guns is exactly the mirror image of saying not enough guns.
No.
You're at one extreme, demonizing the other.
No, because if you look around the world, you look at other industrialized Western
we have lower rates of violence.
We have higher rates of gun violence.
Look at the stats.
Than they do.
No, you got to look at the stats. You're conflating suicide with homicide in order to get what you want.
I'm talking about gun violence like we saw in California.
Can I just say that I am a person who owns firearms in exactly the way that you just laid out, and I think that we have a pretty good relationship about who I am as a person. So for you to indict people like me all over the country as people who are irresponsible, who have fetishes over something that is a constitutional right,
it's a constitutional right out of time. You said, oh, this is a constitutional right. I'm saying that goes back to the forming of a militia. But I will say this for you. The Supreme Court came down on your side. I'm just saying most Americans approve of reasonable inhibitions on gun ownership in this country.
Okay, how dare you insult fetishes?
Fetishes.
That would be prohibition, Ron. Inhibition.
I have a fetish for things I can't talk about.